Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am Jane Stewart with COIRI, and I'm here with Stephen Oziel, who is the principal at Third Quartile Consulting. So, as you all know, today we will be talking about the very fun topic of pay transparency. And it's something that a lot of you are finding very, very challenging. So, as we all know, pay transparency sort of rewards the organizations that have already done the internal equity work, and unfortunately are punishing those that have not. So, we all really do need to get on board with this. So, essentially, my take on it is that this legislation literally has torn the curtain open, and any past hiring inconsistencies or internal equity problems, pay compression, all of that is just bubbling up to the surface, and it is visible, and it is visible to everyone. So the changes that we're all having to make are, they're very big and they're complicated, and I think in the end the employers that are going to do the best are the ones that don't treat this so much as compliance, but instead see it as an opportunity to make the changes that they should have been done maybe years ago in some cases. Ultimately, hopefully, as I was just saying to Stephen a few minutes ago, a lot of work now may lead to a lot less work in the future. So it is worth doing, and it is something it is not optional. So hopefully we can help you walk through some of this today. Stephen has some great stuff planned for you that's really going to prepare you with how to deal with some of the things that I think a lot of you are struggling with. So as we work through the hour, ask questions. You don't have to wait till the end. There's a Q&A button and what's the other one called chat at the bottom. You can enter your questions there. We'll do our best to sort of field them as they come in. And if there's anybody who cannot hear us, let us know now before we really get going. I don't think so. I'm just looking. I have nothing coming in, so I'm assuming everyone can hear. And I will pass you over to Stephen now.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane. I really appreciate it. And it's good to be back with the group again. Good to be speaking at this webinar on behalf of COIRI. And it's great to be talking about pay transparency. Yeah, I got a lot of opinions about it. And there's a lot to be said about it and a lot of work to make it a positive rather than a negative. Um, and I believe there was a question. Yes, this is being recorded. And yes, I believe you should be able to get a copy of that,
Yes.
including the presentation, like what I'm going to be showing, or we can send that out
Yeah,
afterwards.
we considered somebody's mentioning an echo. If this is a problem, okay, it doesn't appear to be a wide problem, so maybe it's just a one person problem. So I guess we'll just continue. If this is an issue, let us know, but I'm hoping it isn't.
And so and I love interactions. I love questions. I want to make this more of a discussion than a let me tell you. This is interactive as much as possible. So please ask the questions through the chats. Um, I hear there's an echo. I'm not quite sure where that's coming from, but hopefully that is not too much. So I'm going to jump into it, jump into pay transparency. Um, a lot of the presentations that you go to, really, they show, and I'm going to share my screen. Share screen. Okay. So can everybody see my screen? Jane, you can see my
Yep,
screen?
I can see it.
Perfect. This is pay transparency. Very simple. You need to post $50,000 range, stopping at 200,000. A lot of presentations speak about this, about what it is. They speak generally about the benefits of it. They speak generally some of the cautions about it. Certainly, it's good for equity and fairness, gender pay differentials. It's supporting candidates. It's moving towards transparency, a lot of positive reasons for it, but I'm more of a management person working with, the HR departments, the senior leaderships. And basically my job is about, well, what does this do internally? How does this affect pay or offering of pay, continuation of pay, differentials of pay based on performance and other matters that are important when you need to keep that really critical person how do you do that? How do you respond to the employee? So I see this as much of an internal headache and concern as much as it is good for diversity and equity and fairness and pay from an external perspective. And so we are going to be talking about the internal side. So down at the bottom over here, I have employee insights, HR insights, and recommendations. So what I'd like to do is move this to what do candidates and employees see and know that they might come and approach you? And then how do you have additional insights that employees and candidates wouldn't know? And so you can respond to them in the recommendations about, well, this is the way the world works in reality, combining what you see and what we know, and obviously what you need to have the organization do. There is a bit of there's work to all of this, but we're going to jump into it. And again, I'm an analyst at heart, so I provide all my recommendations to my leaders as data-driven analysis. I always show my analysis, so my clients see what I see, so that we kind of come up either with the same conclusion or different conclusions, but at least we're looking at the same data. That's really important. And especially now with transparency, everybody wants to see the data. So let me jump into it. And I'm going to start with what the employees see. And let me go here. And I just went to Glassdoor, and I know this is hard to see, so don't worry about it. But you go to Glassdoor, and I typed in HR manager, a lot of HR managers here today. And this is what they're going to see, that ZSA Legal Recruitment is hiring in Toronto, 70 to 75. And then Summit Research, 95 to 125, 90 to 100, et cetera, et cetera. Here's a compensation manager, 120 to 140. That is public information, whether it's on LinkedIn, Workopolis, Glassdoor, Indeed, it's all there. But what I have done is this. I have taken the data from the various organizations and I put it as if it's a market survey, a compensation survey. You know how every organization provides their data? You provided your data to COIRI. So this is the data being provided into this analysis. And so what I've seen for where I can find the title, specifically HR manager, I've found how many are there? There's 16, 18. Two didn't have information. I also did this for senior manager, financial analysts, senior financial analyst, general manager. So I've done a number of jobs. Some are corporate jobs, some are more floor jobs. And then I did down over here drivers and AZ drivers. Okay. So I got a good range of, well, what is Glassdoor current, literally as of this week, asking for? Okay. And so again, I'm a candidate, I'm an employee. Well, I see RSM is hiring all the way up to 176,000. I kind of I'm ignoring that the pay minimum, because there's usually a range, is 54,000 being offered by Kloop or Old Mill Toronto starting at 60,000. This is the truth out there. These are organizations actually hiring as of today, but I put it in a form that is easily to be read. And I think that's the number one thing if you're having a concern for a specific job is to try to do something similar to this. Look at 10, 15, 20 jobs and organize it so that you can respond to the employees. You can give something to the managers. So I have the range, which is public. I have the min and maximum, which is public, but I also have the range. So 35, and look, this person, RSM, went above. They went 72,000. You know, you're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to stop at 50. Rippling did the same thing. So, but I also took a look at, oh, this one needs to be put there. What is the actual range? So remember that when you have internal salary bands, there is ranges also from minimum to maximum. So does the range being shown in Glassdoor represent the pay range opportunity that employees have at a certain level? Do your HR managers or your financial analyst truly only go $20,000 from 95 to 115? Or if I go to the financial analyst, does it go truly only from 70 to 80? And generally, that's not true. So what this is telling me is that these are hiring ranges, not full ranges. And that's just something to say. The first thing to say to employees, these are hiring ranges, not full ranges. Likely, these two here are full ranges, so that um, nobody's really paid at the top. So when somebody says, "Well, I want to go up to 176 or 155," it's not true. It's not true internally at your organizations, and it's not true in a hiring generally. It could be because that's what the job range based on the job evaluation you have done, placed on the placement of the bands, and assuming you have bands. And if you don't have bands, it's going to make it a lot more difficult for you. So you should have bands. And to look at the information just the same way, but slightly different, is to say blue is the minimum and orange is the maximum. So each organization has a minimum and a maximum. And it looks to be that, somewhere in the 85 to 90 range is the minimum for most organizations. And then the hiring range is around $20,000 more, with again the full range going up to 180. So on eyeball, it looks like somewhere between 80, 90, 85, 90 to 100 seems to be the minimum for this job being offered right now. I don't know what's going on with $64,000. You'd have to go. I mean, I do have it here. If I click this open, it's all these words about the definitions of the jobs and so on and so forth, the details. We'd have to go in and look at that. But right now, we're just looking. That's a bit too much information. So, but I do know, and I've done it, is that not all HR managers are HR managers. Not all seniors are seniors, because even the senior here is starting off at 80,000. They don't really seem to differentiate that much. They do, but they don't. But generally speaking, by eyeball, this what seems to be the minimum pay, for an HR manager. And if you're not there, then you have to say, I will be at a competitive disadvantage. That is what the truth. This is not the survey done last year. This is the now, literally now. And that you will not get away from. So knowing your market and is really important in various forms. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But there's a second truth, I think, that HR people know, candidates know, employees know, is that if I look at the progression, if I say who is looking at this HR manager job, who's looking at the financial analyst job, well, it's probably somebody in HR or finance or a manager or a bus driver down below. So what is again, according to the COIRI survey, which you all participate in, 2026, what is the general pay, the median pay for jobs that sort of become a manager? So if I was a generalist with a median pay in aggregate of around $78,000, or there's a supervisor at $85,000, that's me. And I want to become a manager. I want to progress in my career. So I'm already here in this 78 to 85. And again, it might be a little bit less, it might be a little bit more. If I look at the 90th percentile, it goes all the way to 104, but it could go down as low as 71. But generally speaking, let's call it 85, 78. Therefore, the manager of being, or you could be a partner at 95,000. So this, if the median pay of a manager is 125, yeah, it would make sense that it would be at least 95 to 100. That seems to make intuitive sense. I'm already making $85,000 as a business partner. So my next jump is going to probably be at least 10% more, 95,000 to 100,000. to be a manager, which will then give me that $25,000 range. So it's very, I am validating, I think, what employees see. And there's a truth to that. Very, very important. And I just want to stop a second and ask, and you can just put it quickly in the chat. Uh, has anybody done this analysis, this aggregating analysis, um, in terms of how this data comes together? So we got a couple no's. This is good. So there is a, and it's our job. Like I don't think candidates and I don't think employees are going to do this, but we are HR. We're the people department. I am a compensation person. That is the analysis that I bring to bear um, for the clients I work with and internally for the organizations. I then take this raw data because again, I'm an analyst, and I go, well, what insights? What do I know internally about what's going on? So, again, here is a band structure. There's the job evaluation ranges, so again, if you underpin your bands based on job evaluation, which you really should for pay equity and so on and so forth, it really helps to decide what's a senior professional versus professional, but that's a completely different subject. At the end of the day, you're going to get levels, okay? And you are going to have a number of jobs within each level, so it's not going to be job specific. Then you basically say, well, if I'm going to put my manager, my HR manager in this role, is it fitting the market data? Because remember, the band range is a representation of the market, but it's also a representation of your internal employees of where are they. There has to be that match. And of course, the market has something to do with the cost of living and how it moves and so on and so forth. So this organization, and I swear I didn't make this up, it literally fits the market data that I'm looking at, and it literally is fitting the HR manager Glassdoor information. So it kind of fits. So I feel kind of good that this range, and it was made earlier this year. Um, it fits. This is your reality, and that's what you want to do. And I also want to point out that, you know, when you talk about language, and I'm looking at this one over here, when you're talking to employees, when you're talking to candidates, don't think of the range, minimums and maximum. In the language of the employees, it's really opportunity. So the first level here from 45 to 67, it's really saying you have a $22,000 opportunity. Your job can grow, your pay can grow. Staying in the same job, it can move by $22,000 or 50%. There's a 50% increase opportunity based on circumstance, based on your contribution, based on inflation, based on criticality of role. Lots of reasons why, but it's going to go up. So mins and maximums don't seem to hit as much, but opportunity pay is, I think, more exciting. And then you can say, but then if you go to the next level, this 56,000 to 67 to 67 to 76, again, those are just numbers, but those numbers mean something. And it basically means a progression. Hey, if you get promoted from an administrator to a professional, that's a pretty much of a 30% jump in pay. It's so exciting. You have this opportunity to go from 67 now to 94, you know, and that's the way you sell it. It's career progression um, is coming alive if you actually identify what it's intended to do. It's intended to not only limit pay, but create pay opportunity across a job, but down a job. And using the language of employees, I think is very important. But anyway, that seemed to be a commercial break in communications, and but I think that's important because this is now, I think, a lot of large struggles are going to be, how do I explain this to staff? How do I explain this to what? How do I make it make sense? Because everybody's just going to complain. It's our natural instinct to complain and to want more and to be unsatisfied, whether true or not. But there's this approach of like, I don't like it. I should be making more. There's always examples of more and more and more, you know. Even if you show this band, and I'm making $90,000, how come I'm not making 145? Well, you could, I think is the answer. You could.
Yeah, and I
But
think, you know what? I think that that is a problem. It's a problem I've been hearing about nonstop. And I think you need to have your bands done. You need to, your HR and then your managers and anyone who's going to be talking to anyone about comp needs to understand the range and how they move through the range so that you can explain to people why they are where they are. Otherwise, they're going to leave.
they're going to leave, absolutely. And it's interesting because if you go, you know, if I'm an HR manager right now and I'm making 125, you know, they're going to look for the senior manager or they're going to look for the director role, which I didn't do. And they're going to
Mm.
say, well, if I'm making 120 already, I'm not even going to think about, these here that starts off at 120. Even though it's kind of true, they're going to start looking at these top ends, and then your staff are going to look at this as well. So acknowledging the reality of the market, whatever market you're in, is really important. And if you are low, well, there's got to be something Sunrise Senior Living is offering to make it between, well, I guess they gave the full range, so it's 80 to 144. But the next one, 85 to 90, One Dental Corp, they're going to struggle. I can tell you they're going to struggle. Maybe Ellis Don over here. Maybe Ellis Don has a great reputation. And Deloitte's, I don't know, they're given a 96,000. That's pretty wide range. I mean, that's the full
Very wide
range.
range.
I mean, I think that's the full range. I mean, that's the one thing. And if a candidate or an employee shows you this, this is what you need to say. No, no, that's the full range. No, no, that's the hiring range. So you need to be able to identify what they're looking at because they're not going to know. They're just going to say, "Oh my God, I can make 108, 208,000 dollars." Well, maybe you could here too. Maybe if I go to my bands here and we'd put you as an executive director here, and maybe it'd be somewhere between 100. So that's us too. You just didn't know it, but it's us too. So you also have to be comfortable in showing your bands. And I'm surprised too at Deloitte, but it is what it is. Um, so what I did is I was curious about this as well. Um, so I basically said, well, if I took the HR manager information and I basically said, well, what is it that they're showing me? Um, and this is really, their percentiles. Like I translated into the 25th to the 75th percentile, which is traditionally what we use in HR. And we ignore the outliers, which is the 10% and the 90%. So in order to create policy, what we do is we look at the norms, and the norms is within the first to the third quartile, somewhere in the median, which is the P50. When one says that they are competitive in the market, that means they're paying around the P50, which means in reality that half the organizations are paying more and half the organizations are paying less. So you can absolutely find organizations that are paying more when you are at the median of the market, right? Because you're competitive doesn't mean that you're high paying. And you'll always be able to find an exception. There's always an exception. There's always somebody who's been paying way more and so on and so forth. So what I did is I took the Glassdoor information and I compared it to the COIRI information. Now, COIRI has 1,001 different cuts based on size, based on geography, based on industry. And so you would find your own. And for the purposes of this conversation today, I just took the all number. It's not the appropriate number ultimately, but you will do this for yourself and to compare. And again, even with the job postings, Toronto may have nothing to do with London, which has nothing to do with Windsor, which has nothing to do with Ottawa. But, for illustrative purposes, we just combined all of this. Just so please forgive me in this regard. Um, so if we look at the HR manager, what's really interesting is that the top ends of the postings, top end of the postings, is approximately the bottom end of the actual markets. And I'm finding that interesting. Um, the same thing with the financial analysts. The top end, which is 85, 80 to 85, the top end of the posting is approximately the bottom end of the salary band. So I know, and I'm not even a talent acquisition guy, I don't do postings. I'm seeing very clearly that when organizations post, they're posting the bottom of the band to plus, 10 to 20%. That is clear. And you need to ask yourself, is that putting yourself at a competitive disadvantage? Or is it the right thing to do? So on the one hand, I'm a superstar candidate. I would not apply to your job. So you don't even know that I exist because I have disqualified you. I already make, 110. Why would I apply to this job? Right? So there's a self-selection out from a candidate perspective. But there's a self-preservation from your perspective, from an employer's perspective, because oh my God, why would I put up to 155? Because they're going to come in and ask me for $155,000, and this is going to be seen. So I'm now going to have to overspend. And so you have to be very concerned about who's not applying and what is going to happen in that actual conversation to try to get the right person to apply, that superstar who's not going to discount you. And where is that going to come from? It may come from the reputation that you have as an organization, but it also may come from the verbiage. So that if I go back to Glassdoor for a moment and I say, hey, legal recruitment, show me more. You're offering 70 to 75, and I know this is small and I apologize. But show me more. Show me your total compensation. Make me excited about, why am I only going to be making this? I mean, I get it. This is maybe only 2 to 5 years experience and so on and so forth. But maybe if I can't put it in this number, in this top line, maybe I would put it somewhere else. And if I go, I don't know, I'm going to stop here. I'll stop at this one over here. I don't want that. $90,000. Show more. Show me your extra things, healthcare benefits. Make me excited. So here's perks down over here. Maybe if you feel like you're not competitive, you need to write it because you don't want to scare away the people who are right for the job because of the number and everybody only reads that top line. They don't read the actual article. Well, maybe when people are looking for jobs, put it in the article. Make them excited to work for your organization.
I think that that's really key now too, is that, especially for candidates, they're always stuck on the salary. But you have to start pushing the other things as well. You can't, it can't just be a number anymore. Especially if your number isn't going to be the highest one on the page. You got to promote the other things you're offering. Overall, you may be much better, and unless you let everyone know that, they're not going to apply.
They're not going to apply. You're just going to miss it. So again, here's somebody going up to 145,000 broker link. They also showing their incentive pay. Will determine taking into the number of factors, experience. The range represents is based on a 35-hour work week. Oh my God, 35-hour work week. Wow, that's crazy.
That's very nice.
Yeah. Right? So somehow or other, it's like, okay, like there's really important. to get the numbers right in one form or another. We know where people are coming from. We know there's got to be more to the story. I wish I can find the RSM folks easily to see what else they offer. But we know, so what I'm saying now is I see that the glass door higher end is equal to the bottom of the bands at the end of the day, which may do you a disservice if you don't qualify what that means. Um, because and what's interesting, and if I just stop for a second, it even is true for drivers and drivers with AZ um, license. And what's interesting, if I actually go down, and I know I'm focusing on HR, but if I just go down and look at drivers for a moment, um, what's interesting is a lot of them don't show a range. They just show the starting number. And again, these are choices that every organization is making. But this one is showing, there is flexibility up to $12 more an hour, which is a 60% range, which is huge, absolutely huge. So what is the benefit of just offering the one salary? Well, it's the facts. I think that's the truth. They're offering, Voyager is offering $20 an hour, and Fullager Transport is offering $23 an hour. It may go up, but that's a question that you'd have to ask. Um, I like the fact that there's a truth to Lind. I mean, it can go up to 32. Now, it might take you 10 years to get there. I don't know, but at least I know. So if you're going to be transparent, don't be transparent to hurt yourself. That's the way I'm seeing this. Go all out, but in order to go all out, you have to have uh, your background ready, or you're going to get yourself into more trouble. If your managers don't know how to respond, if your talent acquisition folks don't know why or what exactly they're doing, why, if it's leading to additional labor costs unnecessary, you're not differentiating based on performance or criticality of jobs. The whole thing is just floating up and getting you into trouble. That's going to be a problem as well. So clearly identifying how this thing works, but having your fundamentals. So I have my fundamental here. I have my bands, I have my job evaluations. I did my market review, right? Which is the COIRI pay range. I matched the two together. I then looked at what's going on for a manager level position, and I sort of matched it all. So I know that my band should be no less than 95,000, and it really should go up around 60% from there. That is what I know. Now from there, it's how do I communicate this and explain this to candidates, explain it to the employees, explain it to leadership, and explain it to managers to explain it to the employees. And keeping it simple is really and I get it, and I know you're all thinking, and there's always the exceptions, and there's always the nuance, and there's always the legacy issues. That always is going to exist. And maybe it's an 80-20 rule thing that you try to create this thing for 80%, 90% of your organization, but there's always going to be potentially some exceptions. So just because you have the band doesn't mean everybody's in the band. You just created bands. You didn't do job evaluation, so you don't quite know where people should be. So I think I still say that there's a truth to the market data in Glassdoor, and there's a truth to what the employees are saying and seeing, and a truth to where they are, and there's a truth to how you respond to that internally. Um, so, I have a couple of suggestions. So, and again, Jane, everybody's going to get a copy of this as well,
Yeah.
or is it part of the recording?
Pardon me?
Is this part of the recording, or I can send the spreadsheet out
Yeah, no,
separately,
no, no. We
or
can we can send it out. Uh, the spreadsheet we're looking at right now, yeah.
yeah? we can spend. Does anybody want this spreadsheet? Just out of curiosity. Okay, we got a yes, please.
Yeah.
Rebecca,
No.
thumbs up. Oh, Kim, thumbs up. Yes, for sure. A whole bunch of yeses. Hey, I can't
Oh,
keep up
there
with
you
it.
go.
I
You're
can't keep up with it.
popular.
I can't keep up with the yeses. The yeses are amazing. All right. So, you know, in going through this, I would firstly, when you have a discussion with the employee and they come to you, explain the difference between the full range and the hiring range. And hopefully you have a full range as well. Even if you don't have ranges, but you have ranges by job, right? Again, if I go to the HR insights and I say, well, I have the market data, and the market data for a human resources manager is from 109 to 146, you have that data. That's no analysis. That's just straight from the book, so to speak. So having somebody understands, there's a difference, and that range is intended to have to house a whole bunch of circumstances is really important. And, going, and they're not going to listen to you. I don't know if I would listen to you. I wouldn't listen to me. But this idea of market competitive is not just finding the highest number, it is a more stringent review of the general landscape of pay by region, by industry, et cetera, to be remaining competitive but also not to overpay so that it's going to ultimately impact your labor costs, which is ultimately going to impact your competitiveness of your product of service. So the idea that market competitiveness is around the P50, ask them to say, listen, just give me a list of everything here and we'll find the P50. We'll find the median, right? Um, and that's who we are going to be. There's and we can see that the starting point is in the 95. So there's a degree of explanation of how it works, not the generic philosophy statement, but how does it work, And the band is there so that we pay above based on contribution, you know? We don't just go to extremes. So the opportunity is there, and that's what you want to highlight for the employees. Opportunity is there to make more, whether it's in your job by progression, as I showed you here, right? You can make more by in your job, or you can make more by progressing in your career at our organization, of course, if there's jobs. That's what you're trying to say, so that we have you covered. And a little trick that I do when somebody comes to me, I basically, okay, show me. Show me what you're saying, and we'll try to separate out an emotional response versus a factual response. A legitimate response that is specific to your location. So if I go back to here, I'll say, you know, bear with me for a second, and let me just open this up. And let me bring this over here. I mean, so these are all Toronto, but I don't know if some of the, this is Kingston. So stop showing me we're in Kingston. Stop showing me Toronto. Toronto doesn't count because we're in Kingston unless you're planning to move. So to some degree, all of this is data that they might show you something that isn't factually relevant. Client of mine kept talking to me about how much they pay in New York City. And I'm like, but you live here. Why you keep talking to me about New York City? And I know they pay a lot in New York City, but you're not in New York City. So I think not challenging, that doesn't sound like the right word, does it? But, working with the person who's asking to say, well, let's make sure that when we do our market competitiveness, that we're looking at the same things and we're being fair about what the market is, about what the range is, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, you got to be realistic. As someone was already pointing out, like, where you are plays a big factor.
Plays a
And,
huge part.
obviously, it's a key part of explaining this kind of information. So, yeah.
And I get it, work from home, remote work. There's a whole bunch of nuances that we're not talking about, and that is the specific circumstance that you're going to deal with. But okay, but this is directionally helping where you might go. Um, and then, but from behind the scenes, as I said earlier, you have to prepare yourselves to get to this point. At the end of the day, that's really important. And it's, with the salary bands, with what are you going to put in your job postings? What words are you going to put in the postings? What do you offer? I mean, maybe you have lousy offerings. I don't know. And if you have lousy offerings, then maybe you should do something about your health and dental. Or maybe you have to reduce your headcount and go to higher caliber staff if that's possible. I don't know, but at the end of the day, there is an inner reflection about what do we do, who we are, how much we pay, and understand that. And if your staff is concerned internally and they're asking, I would show both ranges. I would say, listen, we hire from here to here, but this is our full range. Okay. So that they have a better sense of how much things pay and and I don't know why somebody is where they are, how long you consider somebody to be a new hire. If you've just put bands in place and you're trying to catch up to the market, therefore, it looks like you're still under the market, but you're trending towards something. All of those explanations are really important. That's part of the transparency of the we're really trying and we're moving in the right direction and we don't want you to leave and we want to hire good candidates. And we need everybody to sort of go along with that. It's really important to do that.
I have someone
Um,
that's asking, and this is actually a great question. What's your recommendation for posting salary ranges in job postings for companies who have pay grades and ranges? Would you go above or below market target?
well, um, I would tend, if you're going to ask me to, I would post 75% of your band structure. And down over here, I would tend to write down actual salary range, and I'm looking at line number 23. Actual salary range opportunity for this position is wider than shown here. Don't say what it is. You're not allowed to. But you know what? Leave some wiggle room for the discussion because I am not going to apply for your job if it's a low. I don't care if I don't know how else I'm going to say it, but I don't care. I am not applying for a 60 to $75,000 job where I damn well know I'm going to have to fight you for $80,000. I would more likely go to these folks. It doesn't seem to have a name here, but go to these folks that at least I don't have to fight as much. I'm not an exception. So it's really important not to be an exception in this regard and things like that. So here's another one to $90,000. So I don't know. Siemens is maybe they don't care. They're big enough, they're international, and they got their rules, and it is what it is, right? So there you go.
Stephen, can you provide an example from your spreadsheet of what you mean by 75% of band structure?
Oh, yes. Um, Here is my band structure. It is, well, let's do this one over here, 89 to 145. That is 100% basically. Okay. That is representing 63% range. But if I did 0.63 multiplied by 0.75, and I should put an equal sign to it, bear with me. Okay. It's basically 47%. So I would basically go from the 89,000 multiplied by 47%. So I would do it to 130. So from 89 to 130, not to the 145. You want to leave some room. You don't want to show it. I don't think you want to show everything because you don't know what circumstance. But if I said that the pay range can go up to 130 again, staying within that $50,000 range, I'm not cutting out the people who are making 110 already. Because if I'm only publishing 89 to 117 and I'm making 110 and I want a 10% increase, So that's going to take me to 120. I don't want to fight with you. I just don't want to fight with HR and I don't want to explain myself. So having a slightly wider range will help with that.
That's great advice because it gives the whoever's hiring the wiggle room they need because if they have a good candidate, at least they can appear to be giving something and still staying within what HR wants.
Yeah, because you don't know the circumstances of everybody,
No.
where they're coming from, and so on and so forth. I mean, the person, I don't know. So you just don't want to self-select yourself out first. Um, okay, lots of words here. Is documents how did we end up hiring? Okay. We can't do voice thing here, can we? Nobody is allowed to talk, right?
Uh,
Right.
I think only you're allowed to. I'm just looking if there's a way of it. I don't think I can unmute the audience. No, not that no, I don't think, at least I don't know how.
Okay. Yeah. Um, so let me just continue with the recommendations. Um, I kind of think you have no choice but to be market competitive. I think something's out there. So to some degree, as much as you can, and you buy the surveys already, so you have the tools. There has to be analysis behind the tools. There has to be organization, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, whether you do it one by one or you do it in aggregate, pay transparency is forcing a centralization of pay to a minimum standard. It's harder to get away. So that's the whole pay fairness thing that it's doing, and it's making it difficulty on the other side. So a competitive doesn't just have to be base. It could be on the bonus. It could be on other non-cash compensation things. Add something, right? Um, you know do this analysis, and I'm sure maybe there's other tools that do this. I don't know. I just called myself a tool. I can help you with this. Um, but at the end of the day, there's the ability to do it, and then um, there's the thought to do it. There's the how do I answer the question? And what I'm presenting you today is a method of trying to get to the answer. So I think it needs to be done both on the posting side, get a flavor of postings, but also on the survey sides. Get confident with what does it mean? What is the COIRI survey saying that not in specific, but in general? Are we market competitive? Yes or no? Where are we lacking? Where do we have compression? You're going to have realities that you're going to have to deal with. It's just your fact. And if you go to your leadership and ask for 10% labor cost increase, they're going to say no. So you have to deal with that. Um, and again, I just want to separate out a trend. You're moving in a direction versus, and you're looking at a point in time versus, you're a lousy payer now, you will always be a lousy payer forever. Or you're a great payer now, or you've got great benefits now, and you always will. If you're trying to get to something, get to that something, right? And you'll deal with the interim as you deal with it. Um, and then, easier said than done. I don't know. Managers don't care about these things. They just want to hire the person. They don't care about the money. Ugh, that it's HR's problem type of thing. But to some degree, the realism of the overall labor cost, the realism of your strategy, the realism of your great benefit plan or pension plan counts. Somehow or other, those broader conversations should have. So I know it's easy for me, the comp consultant, to say train your managers. Um, it's a hard thing to do. So but the one thing I would say is just use everyday language. Don't use HR language. Don't use comp language. Use everyday language. Opportunity, excitements. Don't use ranges, comp ratios. Nobody understands those things. Um, and
If
simplify. Yeah, sorry.
if people are not going to be in, training their managers, which I don't know how you don't in this scenario because you just you can't have them doing something completely different anymore. It's not going to be it's just not going to work within the organization if managers are, adding a bunch to what they're supposed to be paying. Like it's indefensible. Do they not have, like, should HR managers not be putting a lot of effort into training their managers, making sure they know what the ranges are, how they work, how to talk about them to candidates and to an employee? Is that not just like a key part of all of this?
It's a balance. And so the answer, the general answer is yes, but it comes down to headache versus efforts and how often these things come up and how often managers are potentially saying it wrong versus, the outcome type of thing. And if there's an aggregate communications problem, then absolutely. And it really needs to start with HR needs to understand its compensation style. That's even if you don't communicate it to the managers, just know it internally. Hey, what am I publishing? What's my actual range? Are we market competitive? Is there any other things that we have that makes this a good place? Why is our turnover high or turnover low? And if you're honest with yourself, that simple language hopefully should go to the managers. Um, but again, the simple fact of saying, "Hey, we don't publish the full range. We just publish the hiring range. That's what we
Right.
do." No, that's what you're doing.
Yeah,
And if
give them
you're
a buffer. Yeah.
That's right. And if it's not working for you, then go to your talent acquisition folks and say, can you please widen what you're saying and change it this way because you're not helping us, type of thing. Don't be automatic about it. Be intentional about it.
Okay.
And so just a few more things. I wouldn't lowball. Doesn't look good. I mean, I really am resentful about Ploop. I gotta admit, they're bugging me. Sunrise Senior Left, they're
It
bugging
is
me.
kind of shocking.
It bugs me. Financial analyst, 47 relay on demand. Come on. Like, really? So
Yeah.
so you don't want to leave a bad taste in candidates' minds and employees. You don't want to like undervalue. Employees are going to look through and say, "What? $47,000? What are they out of their minds?" So I would add a few words. Put elements of compensation. If you got something nice to say it. These postings are not there forever. It's all fluid type of thing. So 6 months from now, you can change it, or 2 months from now you're trying to get the best candidates on board. And these programs are supposed to help you, not hurt you. It helps in
Yeah.
the general societal equity and fairness. And I get that, and that's a good thing. But it shouldn't be at the cost of your business capabilities and success. That is a consultant like myself. My advocacy on your behalf is always to make your organization as strong as possible, taking into account the priorities. And priority number one is you must exist as a business. And number two is your employees are the core to that. And whatever we can do, including equity and fairness, to make you strong is what we're going to do. It's really important that you thrive as a business first. Um, and my job is to help you get there. And I'm an analyst at heart, first and foremost. But the analysis has to come to a conclusion and come to a what are you going to do about it? Who are we and where are we trying to go? It's not analysis for analysis sake. It's analysis for outcome. And that's why for me, I'm looking at this and I would say, to you, okay, we are People Corporation and we go 75 to 85. Is that what we want to do? Is that hurting us? What are we going to do about it? Let me look at our posting. It's not the best posting. Do we have good bands that support that? You know what I mean? So you're going to look at yourselves and say, but at least it's in context. There you go.
Yeah, no, it's a good
1054.
take. Very good take on that because I think a lot of people are uh, so worried about compliance that you almost forget about what's good for the company. And I like the way you're approaching this, just a little bit of pushback to make sure that you're still getting what you need, that you're still going to win in the end instead of just folding to, new protocol.
That's right. So again, I can't state it enough. This protocol is here to assist with fairness, but and inclusion, but you're not in business primarily for fairness inclusion. That is a support mechanism, not a primary mechanism. And so one cannot confuse those two um, elements at the end of the day. So I'll leave it at that. I am not just, and I don't think I said, I don't like pay transparency. I think it creates too much headaches,
I
which is
don't think you're alone on that.
so that is but it's against the grain because it sounds like I'm anti-inclusion and anti-fairness. I'm not. I'm just saying that can come through other mechanisms. This is causing a labor cost constraint strain that is difficult to deal with.
Yeah, it's so complicated too, and it's going to require so much work now. Again, maybe down the line it'll really pay off, not just because maybe it'll just be a better workplace, but it may lead to much less work, much less headache. I don't know. We'll see what that is, but in this period of time, it's a lot for a lot of companies.
Yeah. So, having said that, we have a few minutes for questions. We'll try to get to. I will put my contact information. Um, I have been doing this for a very long time. And just as
Many moons.
my 30-second pitch is that I would love to work with you. I will take your data, your market position, and give you the truth of where you are. And then you as an organization can decide how you want to proceed forward. Now, of course, I'll help you with the recommendation of, well, you should do this, you try this or fix that or move that. And then, depending on your budgets, depending on your energy, depending on your timing and resources, you will move that. But it's good to know with somebody, who's been doing this forever, um, and who likes I do analysis through first principles as well. I believe aggregating the information, making it come to light is where we see the nuance. And I think the devil is in the detail. And bringing it to a story to leadership. Because at the end of the day, if you're below market, you need to move to market. You're fundamentally asking for money. If you have lousy benefits and you need good benefits, that's asking for money. And that's all either going to come from profitability or efficiency. And so therefore, the advocacy that I bring along is to get you where you need to go at the end of the day, where the organization needs to go from a people perspective, from a cost perspective. That's my
And yeah, we will give all of Stephen's contact information. I think it's like even I think a lot of people just need help getting over the hump right now. They may not need, tons and tons but they need to get some basics in place. And, I think you can really help a lot of these people because I've had so many questions over the last few months, especially over like the last 6 weeks. I think because people have been trying and some of them are hitting a wall. And I think, you have a lot of valuable insights. So we will definitely give you his information if you want to reach out. By all means, please do. If there's any other questions, we're pretty close to 11. If anyone has any last questions, let us know. Otherwise, also you can, reach out to Stephen after if you still have questions. Maybe you'll think of something tomorrow or the next day. Feel free to contact him. So I
yeah.
think we're in the clear. I think we're good. Okay, so I'm going to assume nobody has any other questions and sign off for today. And if there's anything that, we did, I mean, it's a big topic. If there's other stuff you guys are interested in moving forward, let us know because I think you all know now we're pretty accommodating. So if a topic comes up and you want us to do it, we're happy to put something together. And now, I'm going to look into also possibly doing something maybe a little more interactive, where people can talk because we could have done 30 minutes probably with everyone just having a nice conversation as well. So maybe that's something we can do in the future. So I'm just going to quickly check and make sure there aren't any questions, just thank yous, and I think we're good. Okay, so thanks everyone for coming, and thank you, Stephen. Very
Thank you.
insightful, very helpful. And we will talk to everyone again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.